not how the smaller city of Ottawa. In the year 2000, he became appointed President and CEO of the Canadian Tourism Corporation. And then between 2003 and 2010, he was the MPP for probably what's called Ottawa West or something like
Ottawa
that.
West Opinion.
Ottawa West PN, and then returned to mayor of our city in 2010, serving up until his final term that ended in 2022. Now, since stepping down as mayor, he has taken on some new roles in the volunteer sector, and we thought that that would be a really great thing for him to come and tell us about kind of life beyond being a mayor, but in particular, what he's doing in the volunteer sector as a bit of maybe an inspiration for everyone in the community association to do some volunteering as well. So with that, I'll pass the virtual microphone over to Jim, and please welcome Jim.
Thank you very much, Sue, and ladies and gentlemen, neighbors, thank you for the invitation. Sue's right, I was having a tea here in the Tim Hortons, and this woman came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder, and I didn't know if she was an angry taxpayer or just a citizen. And
did she make you jump?
Yes, and I'm happy to receive the invitation, and thank you for coming out. This is my, I think, 21st or 20th year living in Woodpark. I was the city councillor for Capital Ward, which is in Old Ottawa South, Dallas Lake, and Carleton University. And when I ran for provincial parliament in 2001, I made a commitment to move to the neighborhood, and I found an office, which was just by the M&M meat shop in Carling. And I was wandering around the neighborhood, and I saw this infill project that was being built, and there was a for sale sign on it, and a semi-detached. And I put in a bid and was lucky enough to get it, and I could walk to work because my office was at Carling, at Woodruff, and my home was on Woodland. So it was a great chance of luck that I was actually able to find someplace that close to my constituency office. I want to thank Sue and the executive, and the soon-to-be executive. You're very anxious to for volunteering your time. It's probably, and Theresa Kavanagh, I should introduce, a former colleague. Theresa did a beautiful job this evening. If you saw the sad news that Councillor Deeds had passed away, and Theresa gave a wonderful eulogy live. I think it was on the air with Graham Richardson. And Theresa and I think it's probably sort of a bit of a headache to have the mayor as your constituent, calling about a pothole. Probably say you call it. You could have done just as well. But I want to thank you as volunteers, because one of the things that I'm doing after politics is trying to give back to the community that's been so good to me. We just celebrated National Volunteer Week a couple of weeks ago. And I've had the opportunity to speak to a couple of different service clubs to thank them for the work that they've done on behalf of the citizens. And I mentioned it's sort of one of the more thankless tasks, because you get a lot of the headaches of the mayor and the councillor, but you don't get paid for anything, and you have to put up with an awful lot of sometimes abuse based on people angry about an infill project or angry about something that's going to take place on Carling Avenue. So thank you to Sue and the leadership team at Woodpark for the good work that you're doing. Probably the most frequent question I get asked when I'm here almost every day. I'm feeling like I'm one of the walkers that goes around. I'm actually do a little bit for exercise. I'll pick up the newspaper and I'll just grab a tea and a muffin. And I see many of you in and around the Tim Hortons, and I'll just read, and people often will come up to me and say hello, and they often ask, what do you do now? And I said, well, I'm retired from active politics, but I wanted to get involved in a few community organizations. So one of them is Theresa chairs the Ottawa Community Housing Foundation, or Housing Board, which is proprietor of over 16,000 housing units to help those in our community who need affordable housing. So I got appointed by the foundation, which is the fundraising arm, to be on their board, which I enjoy very much. They're a good group of people. And then I also sit on the leadership table of the Shepherds of Good Hope. And then on Tuesdays, today with my shift, I serve, make sandwiches in the morning and serve lunch in the afternoon at the Shepherds of Good Hope. I did that before when I was mayor in the old city of Ottawa, because it was very easy to get to from Old City Hall. I remember it was on Sussex Drive, and I just walk up to the Shepherd's, which is on Murray and King Edward, and I would serve lunch or breakfast at that time. And I've been asked to sit on a couple of other boards. I'm sort of holding off on that for now. I was diagnosed with colitis, so that slowed me down a little bit over the course of the last year, where I haven't always been able to make agenda items, so I try not to overreach in terms of commitments, but when I do make a commitment, I try my very best to fulfill it. So I sit on one corporate board as well, which is a relatively small high-tech company based in Toronto. It's 100 employees, $30 million in sales. And it's a new venture for me because I've never sat on a corporate board, and it's on the TSX. You'd have to watch your P's and Q's and make sure information you find out at the board you can't use in selling off shares, because part of my remuneration is stock options with the company. So as I said, it's a relatively small company, but I'm trying to find a mix of some corporate boards and some not-for-profit, and do what I can to try to help our community. I guess what I'll just talk about are some of the highlights of and challenges facing the city. There's no question that the pandemic and COVID really knocked the wind out of a lot of our sales. We were doing really well as a city, as a country. Our tourism numbers were up after we celebrated 2017 and those great activities that took place. Building permits were up. There was a sense of optimism, and that all came crashing down during COVID. And you know, COVID, we lost over 1,000 residents as a result of COVID, and it became a very divisive issue in the community with the convoy and with people not wanting to take the vaccination and thinking it was going to make them sick. And it required a lot of good work on the part of a lot of people, not just the politicians, but more importantly, public servants. We have, I think Theresa will agree, some of the best public servants in the municipal world. And I've had the experience of being the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and I've been to many of the 444 municipalities, and I come back to Ottawa and thank our lucky stars. We had Dr. Vera Etches, who's our Medical Officer of Health, who's brilliant and very caring, but very firm in terms of her views, and we were fortunate to have her. We also had great city managers, Steve Kanalakis. We had heads of fire, paramedic, the police, all working in cooperation with one another to try to get through this, which lasted, as you recall, was 3 years. And we really haven't bounced back to that level before. We're starting to see some growth in the economy, but you know, I walk around this mall and I'm concerned about the number of storefronts that are empty, that weren't there before. And you know, I've been to a lot of different malls, and this mall seems to have a lot more on a per capita basis, store closures. I'm hopeful Canadian Tire will act as a magnet to bring more people into this side of the mall, but it's all about marketing really. And I know some days, I was here I think last week, and there was a kids exhibitions, two famous cartoon characters that I have no idea who they were, but there was a lineup all the way down the mall. And that was bringing in people. Now, whether they were coming just to get a free picture with the cartoon characters or whether they were going to do some shopping, I think we have to, as a community, do our very best to support our local businesses, whether it's in the mall here or Carling Avenue or on Richmond Road, so that we don't see more storefronts and we don't see this large employment center named Parliament, you know, fall into even greater challenges. So COVID was tough. You know, obviously the light rail transit was a really tough file and very disappointing to many people, myself included. I think we're seeing over the last couple of years a decrease in the number of failures and an increase in reliability. The last number I saw was on-time delivery of about 98.2%. That's great, but if you're, you know, that 1.2% that gets stuck on the train, my stats don't amount to a hill of beans. So we have to continue to put pressure on the company to make sure that they deliver what they promised and what we paid for. I say this just because in comparison, you know, I remember watching the news the first day the Montreal new transit line launched, and it plunked out in the first hour. It was 3 hours. And then I know there's a complete transit failure, I believe, yesterday in Toronto. And then you see what happened in Kitchener, Waterloo, their new train in the first week. 4 cars came in collision with the train. So we're not alone in this. LRT is not something you buy off the shelf. You have to work with the supplier and really keep their feet to the fire. But I take it maybe 3 times a week if I'm going downtown. And I literally see the station at the end of my street, you know, between the Orchard and Woodland, there's a station there. And I'll be able to walk down 30 seconds, 1 minute walk down Woodland and hop on the train at the Orchard station. It looks more like it's at the Woodland side of
That's
Orchard.
what I said.
Yeah, so
You're right.
not sure what happened, but it's closer for me. I didn't twist any arms to get that done. But it's really, you know, as I said, when the system is working,
Yes.
it's a really good system. When it doesn't, it frustrates you know what with everyone. So it was the right decision to make. You know, we were falling behind in terms of our capacity with just buses. And to give you an example, we had reached capacity on the Slater-Albert downtown corridor. That's the one portion of the transitway that was never put underground or segregated. So you could have a car parked illegally in the buses only lane and it backs the whole system up. And many of you probably saw that over time. And we reached capacity. We really only had the capacity of about 4,000 people an hour going through the downtown. With LRT, that goes up to 12,000 people an hour. So we built for the future, and there's no longer, the whole system is segregated. So there's no chance of someone parking their car illegally or a tow truck getting stuck or something like that. It ends up being a system where it keeps you away from people and from other motor vehicles and so on. And I think, we used to see some pictures, we had a great picture that showed the buses all the way down King Edward Bridge towards the Rideau Center, just chock-a-block full, not going anywhere. And without segregation, you don't have reliability. So if a bus is stuck in traffic, it's stuck in traffic. There's nothing you can do about it until it gets declogged. With segregated lane, it's only the train on that track, and in this case, it's the tunnel that goes downtown. So those are, that's, was a big file for the last little while in my term. But I still truly believe it was the right decision to make because we were growing as a city, and we're a city now of 1 million people, which is impressive. We're the 2nd largest city in the province and the 4th largest in the country. So I guess the final thing was, that affects everyone, that we tried our best to maintain a reliable and predictable tax rate because people are hurting, people lost their jobs, lost their businesses, and we don't want to be a burden to the point where people can't afford to stay in their house anymore. And when you go out canvassing as a politician, you learn that a lot of people, particularly in this neighborhood where there's a larger portion of senior citizens, you end up having chats with these people about how their tax bill now is bigger than what their mortgage bill was over the years. And so I think collectively, while there's always a battle, how much should the taxes go up? I've never campaigned on freezing taxes or zero means zero or anything like that. I've said let's keep taxes roughly at the rate of inflation. And that means from time to time making some tough decisions, but also I think you have to think about the silent majority that don't necessarily have a vested interest in a particular project, but they want to be able to stay in their home as long as possible, particularly as senior citizens. And we know that's the healthiest outcome for people. If they can stay in their own home, it's better for them mentally and socially and physically and economically. So I've probably gone on too long, so I'm happy to take any questions or comments that you have, and thank you for inviting me to my community association. Thank you very much.
So, do we have any questions for Jim?
Oh, I have a question. Sir, was there ever any consideration for segregated bus lanes in Carling or baseline? Because that's another choke point for the transit.
Yeah, it's in the Transportation Master Plan, both of those projects, and they make sense, particularly when you see baseline and Carling, the amount of growth that's taking place. And one of the things I'm really proud of is that we adopted a transit-oriented development plan, which encourages transit transit stations to allow build-up. And a good example, we talk in theory all the time, but a good example is if you go up to Blair Station in the East End, there are 2 gigantic apartment buildings that have already been built with plans for, I think, 3 more at the Blair Station. So all of those people, in theory, don't need a car. They can go down to the first level, walk 4 minutes to the LRT, and be downtown in 12 minutes. So, you know, I go by Baseline and Carling fairly often, and not only is there a lot of growth and development with not great transit because it's not segregated, but you know, it's coming up very, very quickly, and you know, we're just going to worsen the problem unless we sort of find a better transit solution for those people going east-west. So the south, you know, South End system, which is operated on diesel, not electric, is expected to be open in the next, say, next several months, certainly by October. And I took a tour of that some time ago, and it's very impressive because it goes to the airport, and it also goes to Milburn College. Or sorry, it goes to the airport, and it also goes to the EY Center. And I was at the airport on my way to Toronto last week, and I saw the train being tested by the EY Center that drops people off. And if you've been to one of those big Comic-Con festivals, it's hard to get parking.
Well, trade shows of any sort, right?
That's right.
If you want to be out there, like,
Yeah.
God help you if you need to drive and park there.
Yeah, sometimes they charge and sometimes they don't, but I think it's going to be great for people to hop on the train, and then the spur line goes to the airport. And, you know, that will be, my taxi ride from the airport to my house was $42. It's expensive, so if I can hop on the train with my my O-Pass and my U-Pass, then I'll say. Yes, Dave.
What do you find most gratifying about your volunteer positions?
I think, you know, the people that you work with, like we have, every Tuesday it's the same group at work, so we get to know each other and become friends, and, you know, we swap stories and we'll see you next Tuesday. And I think, you know, the other thing that's interesting, I find that when I'm serving at the Shepherds, there's a fair number of people, like today, this guy said, "You look really familiar," and I said, "Well, who do you think I am?" And he said, "I don't know, but you look familiar." And I said, "Well, I'm Jim, I used to be there." "Oh, you're Jim, you used to be there." I find that those people in the vulnerable community are really well versed on issues of the day. You know, they're taking the time, whether it is reading a newspaper, or it's on their iPhone, or just, you know, chatting with people. I find that that's quite fascinating that they're following up on issues. And, you know, you get the occasional, "Did you used to be Jim Watson?" And I was called Jim Durrell last week. And, you know, I joke about that with Jim all the time. And, you know, it's just that interaction with people that you normally wouldn't see in the course of the day. It brings you to their neighborhood and their community. And, you know, there are some real challenges that we have with housing, but, you know, I think Theresa and the team there at Ottawa are doing a really good job of doing what they can do, you know, shake the money tree from the federal and provincial governments, and they've had some big announcements. We're just going to make sure those dollars turn into, or those pledges turn into commitments. Rabbi Volka had a great line. He would start off, he said, "You know, some terrible news, $2 million in pledges were stolen from the synagogue." Well, pledges is not money. You know, so you need to, as Jerry McGuire said, show me the money.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from our Zoomers? We've got 11 of you on there. Okay.
When do you think, hi Jim, when do you think this massive transportation project will be finished?
Oh, no.
Is that an impossible question?
Well, you know, they're making, you know, as you hear, I'm sure many of you hear the construction every day outside your window. I hear it too, so I feel your pain. The second phase, I think there are a lot of lessons learned in terms of, you know, what we should do and what we could do to make sure that their companies are accountable. But, you know, I don't think anyone really understood how complicated this process is. You're building, you know, upwards of 40 kilometers of track, east-west, north-south. roughly at the same time. And it's a massive undertaking. You know, even the stations themselves, the station alone is a big project. So, you know, they've set dates and they haven't met them in most occasions. But talking to other mayors, Toronto's in much worse shape than we are. You know, they're having to cross town line is $2 billion over budget, and for 2 years, you know, they don't have one train running on that. Our trains are running 98.2%. But you know, again, it's phased. You know, these would be the most up-to-date numbers, but the south end is going to be this year, and then the next site to open is the east end, and then the last site is the west end. Yes, Larry.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for us how we might get a park for the community at City Hall?
Lisa's laughing at that. As I used to as mayor, I'll defer to you. I'm very happy with the park behind me. I'm the official hydro provider for all New Orchard events because I have a plug at the back of my house. And I've become the ball retriever. I notice a lot of soccer balls. So I'm going to pitch them over because it's dangerous for the kids because it's that spiky fence. I don't have an answer for you, but
Just a bigger space.
yeah, you know what the little park, New Orchard, boy, it gets a lot of use. You know, it's like on a per capita basis, it's probably the busiest park I've ever been to. There's people there all the time, and you know, really young kids with parents or guardians in the morning, and then later in the day, you know, kids are a little older.
You might attribute that to the fact that it's the only park we got.
Yeah, no, that's true. There's there's NCC lands and so on, but it's not the same as the park, that's for sure.
But people are dumping too much of their toys at that park. It's awful. They pretty soon they're having digging the sand. They'll go on the toys instead of giving them to the poor. They're dumping it at the park. I've never seen a park with so much riding toys in the middle. It's awful.
Yeah, there are a lot of toys there, that's for sure.
I mean, I've been to a lot of parks with my grandkids were young and never seen it like that.
Could be that some of those are well used, so I think we need to talk to the kids about that, but I take your point, and I'm hoping that we can actually convince a couple of parents to actually, maybe we'll clean them up in the fall and put them in the shed or
I'll bring 2 riding toys, I'll put the others away, and if they get broken, then.
Or store them in your yard, eh, Kim?
Well, the garage sale's coming up. So I think it is. Are we still doing a garage sale?
so the first of June.
June 1st, all right. Got lots of, you know, we buy junk, sell antiques in my basement.
Okay, any other questions for Jim?
Oh, there's the bell. Finish one.
I think you're saving them all for me.
Well, Jim, thank you so much. I'm so glad that I ran into you and the fact that you had the time to come and speak to us, because it probably would have been kind of difficult to do that when you were the mayor. So thank you so much. And we thought you should come up with something for your backyard or your front yard or wherever you want to put
You know,
it.
it's interesting you mentioned that today. I have the worst lawn on woodland. There's this gigantic dandelion that's at the end of my driveway. And that's my task after this. I'm going to go home and I'm going to dig up that big dandelion because I'm embarrassed. Everyone takes such good care of their homes. And when I was mayor, I was never, I'm probably a good neighbor because I wasn't at home very much. You know, and you go in, you push the garage door, you park, you go in through your house, you don't get to see a lot of your neighbors. And this will have a prominent place. It'll probably be dead in 3 days.
We just had a little water.
I know, this is great.
And you know, on the dandelion, like there's 2 schools of thought, like some people think that they need to stay there for the pollinators. So like, you could just be in that camp. And like, no apologies needed, so.
Well,
Anyhow.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Take care.
Okay, so we're moving right along here, and I know it's a little bit hot in there, but we do have lots of things we want to talk about tonight. But next on our agenda, Theresa Kavanagh, as everyone knows Theresa Kavanagh, I think. She's sitting here right in the front, and Theresa had a difficult evening to get here. She actually went, and some of you know that, or Jim mentioned that she actually was on TV, and made here in time. So I'm sure it's really hard to lose a colleague, and thank you for coming despite all of that. Anyhow, Theresa comes out to a lot of our events. She was at the Spring Fest. She comes out just about all the events, and she often comes here or is online for our various meetings. So we're really privileged to get so much of her time and that of her staff who do a lot with us. Kate and I are on the phone with them or on email with them on a regular basis. Anyhow, I think she'll probably say a few words, and then she'll also take some questions.
Well, you guys were really easy on Jim, so I'm.
Go sit down.
No, thank you. No, Woodpark is a very special place. You guys are getting hit on all sides, let's face it. You're going to be the beneficiaries of two wonderful transit stations, but you're also the ones who have to suffer through the construction and the mess, the detours, and I know that. So you've earned those stations, that's for sure. It's been a long haul. The end is coming. I'll update Jim later on what the dates are now. But yes, the West is last. But I feel that when the South opens, North-South, that's going to give people a little boost, just to think in terms of, wow, something is happening. That, as he said, the trains are running. They're already out there. Right now, they're just testing the drivers. They're training the drivers. That's the last step. So the stations are finished on the north-south route. So it won't be long. And they're trying to target for when school opens, because Carleton will be very happy about that, Carleton University. So that's the goal. In the meantime, I did get a tour of what's going on here, walking through the tunnels, and they were just about to lay the track. And that was like, wow, that happened. So it just made me feel like, it's real, it's coming. And it's a big project. We started off down where the Kitchissippi station would be, and we walked along, and all of a sudden it popped up, and I was at Cleary Station. I was like, wow, how did that happen? So we were walking along. It's interesting, they've got the tunnels separated. Well, they were dug out together, but they're putting a wall between them, so it's safer. Left and right. And so that's quite interesting. And it's going to be a lot safer, and so it kind of surprised me that I sort of just figured one big tunnel going by each other. So the other part that's happening, because we're getting these stations, is we're getting development. And development is coming. We had our official plan. It was done already a couple of years ago, and so that is done. The province has okayed it. They put in their 2 cents worth in. Some of it got changed again, but it's basically about more intensification. Come on in, Jim. You'll learn a lot.
I'm just having staff taking care of my phone, so. Thank you. My keys. Carry on.
Update later. With development, it's not the most popular thing, but the intensification is what's needed around stations. We want to see more people living in an urban area, and that's what's happening. People are aware. Try to remember the address is 1071, 1047 Richmond Road, which started off as 3 towers, negotiated it down to 2. We're getting, it wasn't what we rejected it first, but we made a compromise. So that's the kind of thing that's happening. But the good news about that is that when you have more intensification, I see it as an opportunity to do more things, like buy new green space. So that's the way to get it, is with intensification, you've got some reason to have more green space, and that's how I negotiate it. And that's what I'm hoping to do. I have not given up, Larry, don't worry. I've been hearing from Larry for quite a while. And so that's something that's possible, but you can't get it with status quo. If you have more development, you can have a little bit more leverage of why you need that. And I'm looking at that at other areas too. I'm looking at Bayshore. Bayshore is, development's coming in, but the developer's going to put in some more green space by making a POP, as we call it, which is a privately owned park. And so they're doing that kind of thing around there. And that's badly needed. That's thousands and thousands of people in those townhouses and buildings there. And they don't currently have more than the one park, which gets well used. And I'm hoping to put some infrastructure in there. So those are the things that are going on all the time. As Jim mentioned, I'm pretty busy with Ottawa Community Housing. Ottawa Community Housing is moving forward on building. They become developers. They're not just caretakers of the housing that exists. They're actually building housing. And it's not all social housing. Going forward, they're building mixed housing. So when they do buildings, there's going to be a percentage that are people that are in social housing, and there's people that are at market rate. This gets away from the stigma of having totally social housing in one area. We need that to have it broken up. And we've already got a few buildings built, Rochester, which I've seen, and it's just opened about a year ago, and it's going very well. And that's the kind of things we're looking at going forward. So when we think about affordable housing, everyone talks about affordable housing. It's a very loosey-goosey term, to be honest. It can mean many things. It's not necessarily social housing, but it's affordable maybe to the average person. There's CMHC definitions. Don't get me started on all the different definitions. But we do need more housing that is non-profit. And that way we can see more controlled rents and the ability for people to afford to live without using more than 30% of their income. And that's the goal. In terms of the social housing we have, we're looking at renewing it. For example, Foster Farm. I don't know if you're familiar with the Foster Farm area. That's, do you remember the old giant tiger? Remember where it was? That's Foster, that area is called Foster Farm. That's an area that's right near a station, Pinecrest Station. So we're looking at renewing it. More intensification, but better housing and very family oriented. These are the kinds of things that we're working on going forward. It's just at the beginning stages because it's as part of a secondary plan with Pinecrest and Queensview. And here, you're going through a secondary plan for Lincoln Fields. And what's happening on Lincoln Fields, I don't think too many people have a problem with that. Nobody is going to miss a big piece of asphalt. There's going to be buildings there. They're going to be putting in a park. They're going to be looking at other amenities for that area. They're still working on that. They're just waiting to go ahead. They don't want to get ahead of the station opening, so which will be, mark my words, 2027 will be Fairgate. What's being thrown around is that they'll be finished by the end of 2026. I don't think any of us are getting on a train until 2027. I think that's pretty clear. But it is going very well. The delays that were happening, well, let's face it, there was a lot of them related to pandemic. There was a lot related to the supply chain problem, shortage of workers, and we're just getting through that part. There's a whole different workforce now. They've changed over workforces. I mean, at one time they were doing the digging, right? and it was the truck drivers, and it was the dirt, and it was all that stuff. Now they're getting into the people that are laying the tracks and doing more specific work. So they've changed over, and it's not as labor intensive as before, where they had to get those hole dug. But it's moving along. So those are some of the things that are happening. I'm not sure if I've missed anything in terms of the local, but it's, I'm still working, by the way, on for Woodruff Park, a community building, and they are presenting some funding, but it's not enough. So I'm pushing back to ask them to continue to fund that, because that is something that is very needed, and there's a strong argument to be made, because this isn't about just the local community. Again, the intensification argument works in favor of getting these things done, because there's more people that are going to use these facilities. So in case you're not up to date on that, this is talking about the old field house at Woodruff Park. It's had its best before date, and we're looking at tearing it down and making it a community building. I hesitate to call it a community center. It's not quite. It's a community building, but it would have things like a kitchen and large room and a small room, and access to the outside for barbecues through a window, things like that. So it would mean that you wouldn't be in this room, you'd be over in that room. So it would be useful not just for the Carlingwood neighborhood, but here, and also for Woodruff North, and for people in all those buildings that are coming in. So that's another reason for it to be funded. I put my own CIL money in. I don't know the board's CIL money to get it started. That's why we have architectural drawings and geotechnical studies done already. We just need someone to build it with that money for it. We're doing the same thing in Queens Bay Terrace North for Frank Ryan Park. Pretty much the same, and for the same reasons. They're going to have a lot new population because of Queensview being developed. So those are the things. There's sort of a connection. The train isn't just about a train. It's about changing the neighborhood. It's about the intensification. It needs more people living in urban areas. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. If we keep doing sprawl, it costs us all. It does. It's good. But it's true, because the further out you go, it means more roads, more needs, more pipelines, everything you can think of. But the more you build within your city limits, then you're not going to have to stretch those resources. In fact, you're making very good use of your resources. You're making good use of your transit, etc. And the other important part is to have the connectivity. So we're pushing for more cycle lanes and pedestrian infrastructure. That's coming with Richmond Road. That is already in the plan. Somebody was raising about the bus lanes. That is in the plans. In fact, we thought it was going to happen already. COVID screwed up a lot of things, I'll tell you. But it's still in the plans, and they're still working out a few things. But it is the intention to have a bus rapid transit lane on Carling and up this line. I don't know who's going to go first. I try not to get into that with my colleagues, but they're both very important, and it's a good connectivity with around stage 2, because it would go right to the station. So good old 85, which is, I'm sure everybody's been taking forever. My kids took it because one of them went to Glebe and both of them went to Carleton, so it got well used by them. Well, let's have it move a little faster. Let's have it be more efficient. And that's the way to do it. So those things are coming. They are part of the plan.
So you ready to take some questions?
I got one. Where's Woodruff Park?
Woodruff Park,
Yes, Woodruff Park.
just off of Woodruff. It's kind of behind some low-rise apartment buildings. That's that park that
So it's
it
not
has an
Wood-
ice rink, and it's got baseball diamonds, and it's got
There's a retirement home there too.
Yes,
right?
there is. right?
Yeah.
They're right beside it.
What's your public school?
So,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
Just,
right. Yeah.
No, it's a thing. Thank you.
I read the secondary plan that went around and I thought the intensification, some of it looks really good, but I felt like it was very siloed, like somebody had made a decision about Edgeworth, somebody else had made a decision about the NTC land, somebody else had made a decision about Carling. Didn't seem cohesive to me, and it didn't seem like anybody was thinking about the community as a whole. Like, so if you develop the NTC land, why is it necessarily develop Edgeworth? If you develop the Carling area facing just behind Halden, how are you gonna get the people in and out of their apartments? I'm wondering how these things are developed and how, is anybody thinking about the community writ large with respect to community centers, green space, when all of these condos go up all around the community?
Well, that has been discussed with the secondary plan. We have an excellent planner who's on the file for Lincoln Fields, which is, his name's Jocelyn. And that is something that we're all conscious of. And that's why I was talking about having more green space. I think that's something to incorporate in because of these buildings.
Didn't come across it, came across that the NCC was gonna be developed, Edgeworth was gonna be developed, Carling was gonna be developed, but it didn't come through that there would be any other amenities for the community.
No, you mean like stating where there'll be amenities?
Or there even would be.
It's still being considered, absolutely, but nothing has been identified yet in terms of, over here, we're gonna put a brand new park or something like that. But it is being considered, that's for sure. I certainly am, I'm pushing for it.
But I think you're right, the presentations don't necessarily bring the things together, like, there already are sidewalks committed in our neighborhood, but they actually were part of another process, and so it is kind of hard to kind of bring that all together. And to me, like, how can you even talk about this without talking about community centers? And that's not part of that process, because I think really the secondary plan, correct me if I'm wrong, but deals with kind of building heights and density and that kind of stuff. They don't deal with all of these amenities, and they probably, I think they should, but it's the process.
It's true that there's separate plans, because there is a separate plan for recreation, there's a separate plan for transportation, and it is important that they meld together, and you gotta get out of the silos and have them work together.
Because we do hear so many times that, well, yes, the apartments are going up, and now we've used up all the land, so we'll find some more green space somewhere else.
Yeah, but be assured that we as a community association are working very, very closely with the planners for our area. And I don't think a week goes by where we don't have at least one or two email interactions or a phone call with these planners, and we are stressing these items. We are seeing some progress, but it's still not enough. But we're doing the best we can, and that's why we're looking for others to get involved. We have an infrastructure and development committee that is now without members, and so we need people to volunteer. That's why we asked Jim to talk about volunteerism. The people in this room are the people who can help us.
And I have to say, I appreciate the community association, because then it's hard to talk to you all at once. But by working through the community association, I know that they're streaming to all of you, and because it's very specific messages. And I know they work hard, and I appreciate it.
We actually had a conversation with the planners about 3 weeks ago, and Teresa's right, we have an amazing planner working with us, and I think he understands the issues in our neighborhood. He also has some imperatives related to what provincial government is requiring and what the federal government is requiring, so the kind of those things are all kind of sorting out. But he's been asking me and David for places or like suggestions of where we might have a park. He wants to know when any house looks like it's going to go up for sale, so that perhaps the city could approach them before it actually gets listed. I think this is the kind of thing that we really need, an active infrastructure and development committee that can really, really, when there's a kind of request or an opportunity, we can really bring that forward so it can be acted on.
And keep in mind, this is also just, the Lincoln Field secondary plan is just that. It's a vision, a plan for the future. There are many more steps that have to be taken before a developer can put a shovel in the ground. And those are the opportunities for our community association to get involved and to look at the specific plans that developers are proposing so that we can say, nah, this doesn't fit what the community needs. Doesn't fit what the community wants. Here's what we think you should do. And we want to get involved early in the process. And that takes people.
The other part that that is also happening at the same time is the fact that we're doing a bylaw review. Why are we doing a bylaw review? Well, we've just been ordered by the province that people can have 3 units on each property. So it's not just a change on Carling and Edgeworth, which is definitely happening, but all throughout the community, people can build more units on a property. That's how serious they're taking intensification, and that's why we're reviewing bylaws, and we're just getting started. It's at the beginning stages, and we'll be having meetings on that because it's all the nitty-gritty stuff that will filter down that you'll be interested in because it's going to affect everybody.
Well, I live on Wentworth, and I understand through all the information I've been seeing between Carling and Vaughan on the west side of Edgeworth, there are going to be 20-story buildings. What are you going to say to the person who's on the east side of Edgeworth who's now building a property only 2 stories high? And then you're going to see a big 20-story building in front of you. Oh, we're going to have a sloping, 20 stories, 10 stories, and then 4 stories. Excuse me, I have had a stroke and it's hard for me to speak my mind, whatever, but what do you say to me? Like, my property is going to devalue? Like, am I the only person thinking like this, or what?
I get that question a lot about property value, and frankly, your property is going to be very valuable because it is a piece of property, and you have the opportunity to put other units on it. It's not going to be reduced, that's for sure.
Yeah, so how many stories are going to be on the west side of Edgeworth? What do you see happening?
That's still being negotiated and worked out. It's up to somebody buying the property and looking at it, but it is the closest area to the station.
Yeah,
and that's why it is being
targeted. You know what? It's a secondary plan for Lincoln Fields. Lincoln Fields, we know where Lincoln Fields is. And put in a 4-story building and stuff like that. And it would slowly slope down, the scale down to where ours are. Like, why are you building big stories and studying big apartment buildings and right across the street, there's like 2 or 3-story homes. We can say to all those people.
I know it's a big change, and
well, it's more than a big change.
Yeah,
it's more than a big change.
And Paul, you should be aware that the city has told us there will be no property expropriation. So it is up to the people who live on Edgeworth to be willing to sell their properties to developers for those buildings to be built.
Yeah, so I know that, whatever like that, but the evolving neighborhood, the densification, like, I didn't ask for any of that.
And we agree with you. We think that Edgeworth should be left alone, and is one of the argumentative points that we frequently discuss with the planners. They basically told us, keep your powder dry for when the actual developers propose buildings for that site.
Yeah, like, shade parking, like, all of it, like, it just.
So I think these are the kinds of things that that the community really needs to get together so that we can actually put our position forward. And we'll talk a little bit about the timing of the plan in a few minutes, but Lily's question back here.
Like front doors on the
Theresa, I just wonder if you have a number broadly in your basket of information about the ward or about this neighborhood, the proportion of rental units that are available, rental units, like I think about all the towers that are going up, and I'm thinking about Woodruff and Richmond Road, for example, that tower that went up. It's very expensive. Like all these infills that somehow are magically going to be filled by whom? Like what's the vacancy rate of the existing rentals in this ward? And what do you imagine going ahead? I know it's the question of affordability and so on, but
The vacancy rates are extremely low.
are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's tight, and that's why the prices are so high. Probably you know somebody anecdotally who's tried to get an apartment and found out they're very expensive. And the reason.
I've looked.
Yeah, exactly. Why are they so expensive? Because they know you have no choice. There's not, prices go down when you're competing against each other. They're not, because there's not much out there.
Do you know what the number is? Do you have a number?
No,
Okay.
I know
Okay.
that the vacancy rate is extremely tight.
I think there's a question in the back there.
And Bay Ward would be pretty well in line with everything.
Okay, thanks.
Byron Linear Park was supposed to be a temporary loan to cut and cover for the LRT. Is there any plan on that coming back, or is that after 2027?
This is something that you'll see on May 29th. We're having a meeting to show, what's happening with stage 2. This is an update, and they'll talk about landscaping. In fact, if you have any questions, you can send them in to us, and we'll send them to stage 2 to make sure that they're answered. But that is one that they're expecting. So there will be landscaping done. There'll be a part that's open. There is a part that is open near the station, like where you can see down. But there is landscaping done. We've seen sketches of it earlier. But they may have some more up-to-date sketches. But yes, it's going to be covered with grass and trees, and that's what's expected to go back.
So is there any timeline? Is that like
That's a good question,
or is that...
and if you send that in, we'll have it answered at the meeting. And even if you can't make it, you always report it.
My understanding is that construction will be done, and then they will be starting next year on the remediation. It'll probably take a couple of years, but that work is started. Barbara?
Yes, last year we had people from Hydro, Ottawa Hydro's basically said 40-story towers, we can't do that. They're not ready for servicing that. So are other services also in a situation where they're not prepared to deal with?
Well, I'm very surprised.
Popping up?
These are the things that are vetted when planning staff observe a building. They have to make sure that they can get hydro and everything else, sewage and storm work, which of course is directly operated by the city. All has to be approved before a building.
So we could be looking a lot of infrastructure.
I'm very surprised by that statement because frankly it doesn't make sense because that's part of the list of what they have to go through to make sure a building is ready.
I'm sure other people.
Yeah, I remember it was Stephen.
I know what they're saying, why they're dealing with the apartment buildings, because there's so many people in apartment buildings, they have less time to do the houses, because they're too busy concentrating on the apartment building. I think that's what they're talking about.
Well, there's a lot more people, I think, so it's definitely worthwhile to make sure that they're.
And I think there also are two kinds of planning, like there's the broad strokes of the secondary plan, and then there's the site planning, and none of that stuff can actually be, if they don't have the services that can't be full. But I think it is
We have a question online.
we'll have this lady here first, and then we'll go to the question online.
Yeah.
I'll try to edit what I'm trying to say here. I walked around, I had time to walk around, but didn't seem to have time to make media. But meanwhile, this corridor is a major concern as well. So the 30-story buildings here and other heights similar, which is not acceptable. And stripping that whole area of the businesses there is not a good idea.
You're referring on Carling, right?
On Carling. Now, meanwhile, in particular, I'm on Holland Place, and my house backs on the parking lot of the current tower at Woodland and Carlin. I have never had an issue with the front lawn, ever. And it's about 30 years. Meanwhile, down here, 30-story is just totally not acceptable. In that intersection of Halden Place and Woodland, it is not an exact T. So how are these people who are supposedly the youth that need rent the buildings and are going to go down, walk down to the LRT and get on the LRT and go to these imaginary jobs, actually going to get out there with all that traffic? It says that the building exit for the vehicles in that building, as vehicles, not just bicycles, are going to go out to the side streets. There's only one side street, and that's Woodland, and that is not an exact T. So even that is bizarre. So are they going to expropriate some land park that's along Halden Place to satisfy a light there and block people coming down with a red light here right in Carlin? What about all these businesses? What about the nursing homes? There's huge business and occupy all along there, and it goes all the strip, right? So apart from me, right, who could sell and leave, the point is everybody else. And what about children coming along here? Even if there's sidewalks, that's just not doable there with the congestion. 2 cars come out and they block that.
There's already, it's hard to talk about very specific projects, but every single project gets a traffic study. So, first of all, there'll probably be less parking in these buildings. Generally speaking, they do about a 50% ratio or less. But in terms of the parking, I mean, further east, there are already buildings of that scale that have been there for decades, actually.
Well, 30 stories is way beyond. I'm told verbally, at least, it's not quite confirmed in writing, that down on Carling Avenue where they're building opposite where the prior Canadian Tire is, let me finish, that was supposed to be 30 and it's been lowered just by simply community action say it's not acceptable to that community behind that and towering that way. So I'm raising an issue.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but...
Well, the point is a 30-story building is going to tower over the entire thing. The light, the everything, the people, the number, the traffic is not manageable.
Perhaps we can work on getting your questions articulated and we get them to the planner so that we can raise that issue.
Yeah.
I'm going to take 2 more questions because it's hot in here, we've got a lot of other stuff to do. So one on Rob, go ahead.
Oh, hi, it's his wife, Casey. I'm just on Rob's account. I'm just wondering, you mentioned that you could,
Okay, let's go to the question back here.
Question is related to Richmond Road. You said that the LRT, and that's going to be landscaped, 26, 27, whatever. The Richmond Road complete street, that's still planned, and is there a timeline for that relative to the LRT?
They're trying to get that done ahead of schedule, the complete street. No, I don't have a timeline, but they're trying to advance it. Normally it would be done after the stage 2, but they're trying to get it advanced. It's another question we can ask on May 29th, which is why I'm having a meeting, because there's lots to catch up on. But that's what they're saying.
About Woodpark, as you, a lot of people in the community don't even know that park exists because we don't have any direct access to it. Just in your planning for a community building there, can you kind of try and keep in your mind to get us a direct access to that park so we're more aware of how to get to it?
Sure.
You have to go around those buildings and, people don't see it.
And there's that whole problem of the Anthony crossing over.
Which we're working on.
Okay, question here and then one on the line, and then we're going to close this off.
Yeah, so I guess you're talking about intensification and changing the landscape to make use of all the infrastructure you're putting in. But the buildings that are going up along Carlin, they will change the landscape of the neighborhood drastically. We're not talking about, incrementally making changes to the neighborhood to have intensification. It'll be a new neighborhood entirely. And me, for one, myself, I'd probably end up selling and moving.
Me too.
I don't want to live with a 30 story building.
Exactly.
Me too.
Or.
Can't even get out.
Exactly.
And there's other, I don't want to throw the problem somewhere else, but there's other parts of the city where you can have intensification and take advantage of this new rail system that's going in without impacting the existing neighborhoods that are there already.
Yep.
Exactly.
So, as has been pointed out, someone has to buy and somebody has to decide to build along Carling. So, and generally speaking, we try and get transition so that there's not a drastic change between the building and what's behind it. That's usually one of the goals when they're looking at planning. In terms of commercial, we would definitely want to encourage commercial along Carling Avenue to keep it lively. That's something that is hit and miss, I mean, in terms of buildings that were built in the days gone by. But I think that's important. They're going to do that on Richmond Road for 1047. They're going to have commercial on the first floors. That's important to give it that Main Street feel. So
Okay.
That's something we're encouraging.
And, keep these ideas, because we're going to need them as we prepare our comments on when we see the plan. Okay, Rob, are you there?
We look to be having some audio problems.
Did you want to put it in the chat?
Maybe a chat question?
Yeah, we do have a chat question, and it is from Valerie Hexmeyer, and she's asking you to comment on Housing First Support Program.
Okay, I just want to read it. Yeah. So you're talking about supportive housing, and that's something that I know is very much lacking, and it's something that we have to deal with. Ottawa community housing is not supportive housing. It's social housing, and unfortunately, though, because there's such a crisis out there, people are homeless and they get put on a list, and we're asked to house them, but they have complex needs. This is something actually we're pushing for big time, is asking for funding for operations. That's not something that we have right now. We run buildings, we're like most building, we're landlords, and it's operating the building. We have some services for community services, but we do not have 24/7 care. And that's something where we need partnerships. We're calling it complex care. We've already been lobbying the government of Ontario. We've spoken to the City of Ottawa about that. That's something that we absolutely need, because many of the people that we see as homeless, there's a reason they're homeless. They usually have more than one issue. It's not, they could have mental health issues, they could have addictions, they could have a lot of things. So they need help. And just putting them in an apartment is not going to work. You need to give them support. Some places do have those supports. Shepherds of Good Hope is doing supportive housing, and other charities for women. Cornerstone, which is now at the top of my street, it's on Carling Avenue at Roseview, just across from Tim Hortons. They're supportive, but we need more of it. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what we need, and this is something that I'm hearing about everywhere.
Okay, thank you for taking all of those questions. We lost Rob, have we?
No, Rob is still here. They can hear us, and the Zoomers can hear themselves, but we can't hear them.
So does Rob have a question, or?
He wanted to know who to send comments to, or send questions to, but I don't know what you referenced to.
Well, generally speaking, send it to bayboard@ottawa.ca, and we'll figure it out. If it's for stage 2, we'll send it to stage 2. If it's for secondary plan, we'll send it to Jocelyn. We'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
One last moment.
No, I'm sorry.
We're running behind.
Huge agenda.
And Teresa's going to stay for a little bit, so you can maybe talk to her just at the end. So
Okay.
we have lots of things to do, and it's hot in here, and people are probably ready to go, and we have a few things still to do. So we want to go now to the business part of our meeting. So we're gonna, and that's where we elect new board members, and I also want to talk a little bit about what we've done last year and what we're gonna do next year. So let's start with the approval of the agenda. So this is kind of an informal, this is our annual meeting. This kind of is part of what we do for being a nonprofit organization. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna approve the minutes from last year. They were distributed. I'll talk a little bit about the year in review. Then we'll have Jennifer, our treasurer, tell us the good or bad news about our finances. And then we have a motion to approve our new bylaws. And then we will have the election of the board. And then I think we will be done, other than we have a draw for a door prize. So that will be an important thing that we do as well. So everyone okay with the agenda? Okay, so approval of minutes from last year. These were posted on the website. Did anyone get a chance to read with them? I wrote them. I think they're pretty good minutes, but anyone have any concerns about the minutes?
Approved.
Can I have someone propose the motion? Okay.
A second.
Any objections? Approved. Great. Okay, so this will take maybe about 10 minutes, and maybe my husband can kick me to go on longer than that, but I want to just talk a little bit about what we've done last year and where we're going next year. And we're already talking about the development's going to happen here, and I think that's where we're going to have to spend a lot of time next year. So this year, for the first time, we actually did a little bit of a work plan, and we said there were 5 things we were going to do. And we posted that on the website somewhere. I don't know if people can find it. We're going to do that again next year with the new board. But the first thing we said we were going to do was modernize the operations of our Woodpark Community Association. And the first thing we had to do was we had this pressing need to redo our bylaws to be consistent with the new Ontario legislation that governs not-for-profits. We had to do that by October of this year. And when we approve the new minutes tonight, we will have checked that off and we will be compliant with the new legislation. That new legislation also required us to actually identify who our members are. In the past, anyone that lived in Woodpark was automatically a member. We actually have to produce a list, which is why we delivered those cards to every home and asked people to sign up to become members. And I think all of you had to say whether you remember when you came in tonight. So we got more than 200 people pretty quickly sign up, and we want to get the rest of the community as well. But good for that.
I should say that in the population of Woodpark is 2,506. We've got 190 members. So we're missing a few.
Now, some of them will be children that can't sign up. In terms of that.
They're missing.
And the other thing about signing up for people to be members is we will have everyone's email, and we really want to move to a more electronic distribution of material, because it's very expensive to print, and then it's a lot of work, and I know Karen and a number of other people, it's a lot of stairs to walk up and down in Woodpark, and my knees don't do it very well. So we want to get as much as possible to be done electronically. Some people have asked to have paper copies, and we will absolutely deliver that, but we just don't want to waste time and paper. And finally, the last thing is we've updated our website, and Dave has done all of this, and if you haven't looked at our website, go and look at it. It's easy, woodpark.ca, bookmark it. It actually has lots of useful information on about what's happening in the neighborhood, so put that in your favorites or whatever, visit it on a regular basis. So anyhow, I think we've modernized our organization.
Can I add to that? We also have a blog. We have 44 blog posts in there, dating back to, probably 2 years ago. We want people to interact with the community. You can write guest blog posts and send them to us, and you can communicate your thoughts to the community through our blog.
And then you can respond and have a conversation through the blog. There's a comment box as well. So it's a very nice feature.
Sue, I want to thank David for having produced a summary with the help of AI to all the new bylaws. It was great. Very readable, succinct, clear,
Yeah, that's
Thank you, David.
that's an internal document for us, but I can put it out on our website.
Yeah.
I took the 94-page document and the 15-page document
Yeah.
and ran them through AI and said, please summarize this for me, and we now have a 4-page document.
Yeah. And it reads easily. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that's part of our modernization. So then the second thing we did is said we wanted to increase the financial stability of our organization, and I think this is a work in progress, and normally we try to keep at least $2,000 kind of there in case we need it for some major thing. We've actually had to dip into that this year because of the printing to get people to sign up to be members, to have some more software. So we kind of had probably the biggest expenses this year in that thing, because of that kind of transition. We had to kind of two things going. We should be able to have less printing costs next year, but we're going to need to do some fundraising, and we've been quite successful in getting some businesses to pitch in some money, and we want to do some more work to bring businesses on board, because I think they also benefit from having a strong community association. And we built this nice little directory that's on the website. You can go and see the businesses, and so that's also, I think, a useful tool for anyone new to the neighborhood or anyone that's looking for a service they haven't had before. So speaking of money, every year in our community association annual meetings, we ask for some donations. So there's a nice little box for any cash that someone might have in their pocket. I actually don't normally carry around a lot of cash, but we'll send that around, or you can drop it in. The other thing, though, because most people don't have cash these days, is you can send us an e-transfer easily to woodpark@woodpark.ca, and that's all over our website if you forget that, and you can send us some money, and we really benefit, because we don't get any other sources of funding other than begging Theresa to maybe help do a print run or those other kinds of things. We really depend on donations. So that's the plea for money. The third thing that's always in our plan is develop and foster community spirit. Maybe just have some fun. And so we had movie night in the park, and that was a great event, and we'll have another one this year. And we did the holiday giving tree, and we had an amazing spring fest that had amazing weather. And so we will continue to do those things, and those things are very much dependent on volunteers who aren't necessarily on the board, and we certainly thank everyone that comes out and helps at those events. The fourth thing we said we would do was advance projects to make Woodpark more sustainable, to be more livable, sustainable, and a vibrant community. And we started by launching a tree initiative. We want to have 100 new trees in Woodpark, and we already have 15 planted, with 3 more to be planted soon. And so we hope to kind of grow that. And Barb, who's sitting in the back, is our tree expert, so if anyone wants to talk to anyone about trees, and Michael is our tree buyer, there are suggestions there, and you know, you can get a tree from the city, we can help you buy a tree, lots of resources there. And as we start working on the fire and path, the city is committed to plant 2 for 1, I think, on the trees. There's actually a very detailed plan about how many trees need to be replanted there, and so we need to make sure that we're keeping the fire and that we get those trees back. And I hope that, and I think we've got a new board member that's really strong in the environmental area. I hope we actually can launch some other initiatives other than just trees, even though trees are really close to my heart, but there are many other things we could be doing in the community. And then finally, the last thing is really increase the awareness, the knowledge of the development and planning portfolio in Ottawa, and particularly in our neighborhood. Okay, we've lost people. But we actually took a project on last summer for each board member to review a paper and to do a little presentation on a paper related to, there were 7 planning discussion papers that launched this new planning bylaw process that Theresa talked about. And so we took it on ourselves to kind of educate ourselves. We wrote a letter to the city, we wrote a letter to the mayor, and we will continue to be tracking those bylaws. Although I think some of those changes to the planning bylaws, when you start looking at the Lincoln Fields plan, like those are, the Lincoln Fields intensification is just like the some of the changes to bylaws on steroids. So we've already heard a lot of concerns about this. I really would like people to come out to help us prepare our briefs for the city as we comment on the things we like and we comment on the changes that we need. I mean, I feel like I wrote most of the stuff that we distributed. I distributed practically all of those flyers. I needed some help, and I think there are those people in this room. We're going to need that help if we're going to be successful. I think we're going to have to go to the planning, the planning committee in September and make a presentation. And so I think we really need to get people informed on that and our views coalesce so that we can make articulate points. I am very concerned personally about the Edgeworth development. I think it's going into a neighborhood is completely out of line. I get that it's close to the transitway station, but it's in a neighborhood. And Carling, I look at those places on Walsh, but will be right up against a huge high rise. Like, that is just not good planning. But anyhow, we will do what we can. I think some of the areas in that area too will not just be the height of the buildings, but it is having the sidewalks, having the parks. And we are in an active conversation with the city about the parks. In fact, they want us to suggest pieces of land that might become available. So that's all good. You know, we need to be thinking about, okay, once the LRT comes, where's the traffic flow going to go? Where are people going to park when they get on the LRT? We need to be working on that now to say we need permits, and they can only be permits for people that live here or whatever on there. So those are the things that we need to start now so we can be ahead of the intensification that comes in the opening of the LRT. So that's enough said about that. So I guess that just kind of leads to kind of a plea for volunteers. We're going to have some great new board members. Most of them are sitting there and one over here. But we're going to need other people to be on those committees to help do all of that. Speaking of volunteers, we did have 4 board members that have served for a very long time, and they've decided to step down. You do this stuff for a while, and then you say, your spouse says, I want those evenings back, or whatever. Larry's one of them here. He was the president at one point. He's been the secretary, and he's stepping down, but I know he'll still help him put up signs and things like that.
Larry, please stand up and take a bow.
Yes. And 3 other people that have left is Tanya, who's always done the mural, and I think she's going to help us with the mural again. John Wood, and Ian, who was the president until last year. So we're going to miss them, but we kind of recognize that people have had enough, and we can bring new blood in, which is going to be great. So as we work through our work plan, we're going to meet next week as a new board and start pulling together our work plan. We'll reach out to people to get some sense of what people might want in that work plan. But if you've got ideas now, and you know, you can talk to us on the way out, but also send us an email and say, hey, and you can copy the councillor, or you can send it to the councillor and you can copy us. Let us know what you would like so that we can actually integrate that into our meetings with Theresa or other people. And that's Woodpark at woodpark.ca. You can have send the money and the comments.
Money first.
Anyhow, enough about that. Okay, let's move on to the financial news.
I'm not going to go into details because financial summary is available on the website, of course.
And it's up here.
I can't see. So, I know we started at approximately 2,200 at the beginning of the fiscal year. We ended at approximately 1,500. We had 3 great events, hugely successful. Wonderful support from Horizon Dental Care and Louisiana, and then of course wonderful support in kind from Diamond Storage, from Lowens, who has hosted our meeting several times, and I'm blanking on my 3rd one. Councillor Kavanagh, of course, and
Metro.
Diamond Storage.
Diamond Storage. No, where did I still?
Oh, the dentist. Horizon Dental.
Horizon Dental Care, of course, absolutely, but anyway, it doesn't matter. We're looking forward to having a lot more community events this year. We would really appreciate your support. This stuff isn't free to do, and the reason we actually went down a little bit is, of course, during COVID, it was more difficult to have events, wonderful to do donation box and what have you. Logistics can get complicated. But it's been so lovely to see everyone at the spring event. Wonderful to see the great turnout for the movie night. Really looking forward to more, and of course with the mural painting, I think it will bring us a lot closer actually as a community. So by all means, come to the events, donate as well. Let me know if you have any questions about the financial update, and it's been great.
We did
Questions?
operate at a loss last year. We spent $721 more than we brought in. So,
Hello.
hello.
Okay, any financial questions? Okay, over to our motion, our
Okay.
piece of business for tonight.
As Sue mentioned, we had to, because of the Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, be able to change our bylaws. We had to conform to that, and so our bylaws went from a 4-page document to a 20-page document. Now, it is tailored for us. It took about 6 months of back and forth with our directors on our board of directors. 3 meetings ago, we approved it, but at this meeting, our members need to validate it. So I am looking for a motion to validate the bylaws. Okay, we've got movers, and we have a seconder. Oh, we have a seconder. Do we have any objections to the 20-page document then? Did anybody read it?
Many times.
Yes. Can we have a show of hands to who approve it? All in favor? All right, business concluded, and we're going to turn it over now to Councillor Kavanagh.
So can we just congratulate on the bylaws? That was a huge.
We had no other motions, and so
So over to Councillor Kavanagh to run the election of the board. All right, I think she has on her.
Yeah, I have it on my phone. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go through, we'll start at the top with the president. And we have Sue, Milburn-Hopwood, who is who's putting her name forward. Is anybody else want to put their name forward? Anyone else? I think that you're doing a great job, and congratulations. Now, our current vice president, or your current vice president is David Levac. Do we have anyone else who's interested in being vice president?
I should say that we are only electing directors. The positions of president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer will be appointed by the newly elected directors at our next meeting.
Are you doing it that way? Oh,
Yeah, that's the way we run the registry.
Well, why don't I read off all the names then?
Yeah, the returning directors and then the new ones who have.
And actually, they're on the screen here if that's easier for you.
No, otherwise I'd have to go like this. Then we've got Sue, as we've already mentioned, David, Jennifer Plonk, and Michael Brum, Jim Smedley, and the following individuals who are going to wish to consider themselves: Mary Kavanagh, Stephen McGill, Mark Preston, Sandra Robles-Cruz, and Jane Taylor. Do you all accept your names being put forward?
I think there's one more name, is Joan Harrison.
Oh, okay. Oh, Joan, okay. I know Joan. Okay, that's great. Is there anyone else? Because you have up to 15, correct?
Yes.
And so there's still openings. Does anybody else like to put their name forward? Just
And if you're hesitant tonight, you can always come during the year too.
Yeah.
You know, the theme of the night is volunteerism.
And it doesn't matter if you decide a little later and want to join, but please consider it. It takes the workload off these wonderful people if there's more people to help out and to talk to. And the more voices, the better. And like I said, it's great for me when I have a community association to talk to. Not all my neighborhoods have community associations. Some of them just never got together. I'm always amazed at the solidity here of community association. People stick together, you do great activities, and that's why. It takes energy, and there's always someone there stepping forward. So, with all those names put forward, can I have approval of the slate of candidates? Okay, seconder? Okay, you know the names, thirders? All those in favor? Excellent. Congratulations to those hanging on. I didn't get a chance to go after the Zoomers, but if you want to put your hand up, it's not too late, and we can tack you on. Anybody out there?
We didn't have any hands go up.
Okay. Okay, but like I said, you can add it later. Thank you. Is that good enough?
Yes, actually, we have one more task for you. It's the fun task. So thank you very much for helping us with the election. So when we got to 100 100 memberships, we had 9 Ottawa Hydro emergency kits. These are first aid kits plus other emergency stuff to give away. And I delivered all of them personally. Everyone was so thrilled to get their emergency kits. So David actually reached out and said, can we have a few more? Because everyone liked them, and they are lovely, lovely kits. So that's our door prize tonight, and we'll have our council do the honor of choosing the name.
Drum roll.
Jennifer Solway. There you go.
Okay, I think with that, we can officially close the meeting. We don't have to be out of here till 9 o'clock, so you can have some coffee and tea, and you can tell us some of your views. And Theresa had a long day; she might stay around for a couple minutes, but we'll let her go because she's had a hard and rough day. But feel free to eat up the cookies. And thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.